that what he means here is that Cantor's theorem or hypothesis or the continuity of space and time, I mean infinite, so Cantor's proves sort of continuity of space and time through equating. That's what identity means here in Iqbal's sentence. What, according to Iqbal, Cantor does is equates continuity with infinite divisibility. So what he posits is that something is infinitely divisible, then it is continuous. There is no gap. Okay, so but the identity of an infinite divisible is no solution. Why it's no solution? He gives the argument in the next portion. Why it's no solution? It's no solution because, according to Allama Iqbal, assuming that there is one-to-one correspondence between the infinite multiplicity of instants in a finite interval of time and an infinite multiplicity of points in the finite portion of space, the difficulty arising from the divisibility remain the same. What was the difficulty arising from the divisibility? Space and time. That's why it's important to note, as we noted last time, because Zeno has several paradoxes. And a paper I quoted, a recent paper on Russell, the history of Russell's understanding of Zeno's paradoxes and his application of different solutions to it. What that paper claimed was that when he is referring to Zeno's actual paradoxes, he's not actually applying Cantor's thesis to them. And when he is applying Cantor's thesis to so-called paradoxes, he is not referring to Zeno's actual paradoxes. So what is the divisibility for space and time, and why is problem? Because if space is made up of points and time is made up of points, and motion is going from this time to this space to this space in this time, for example, and if these points are discrete, there's always a gap, meaning there's, in a sense, no space. And if there's no space, there's no movement. That's the divisibility problem. And Cantor's thesis purportedly solve this problem because they're continuous, like they're divisible, there's no gap. Now, Allama Iqbal comes up with the argument, again, this continuity argument. And what he says is that might have solved one problem, but it created another problem. Or in other words, it might be able to answer to Zeno's paradoxes, which were based on the gap, but it can't answer Zeno's paradoxes, which are based on infinite divisibility. And Allama Iqbal sums up that objection, that assuming that there is one-to-one correspondence between infinite multiple instants in a finite interval of time and infinite multiplicity of points in a finite portion of space. So this is space. So these are finite points, T1 to T. This is S1 to S2. Now these are finite space and time, but they are between this, they're infinitely divisible. and here infinitely divisible. And there's one-to-one correspondence between this divisibility. So it doesn't solve the problem, because since the points between S1 and S2 and T1 and T2 are infinite or infinitely divisible, even if they are continuous, the gap problem is solved, but the problem of motion is still there, because in fact the body is at rest at every point. And if it is rest at every point, it means the sum total of rest must be rest as well. And something like that. That seems to be Allama Iqbal's objection. So he's saying that, assuming that there is a one-to-one correspondence between the, I just went through this, so between the infinite multiplicity of instants and finite interval of time and infinite multiplicity of points in finite portion of space, the difficulty arising from the divisibility remains the same. Meaning that you can always divide the next instant of time as well as next point, next portion of the space. So, and since it's infinite, so the object actually never moves. So yeah, so the mathematical conception of continuity as infinite series applies not to movement regarded as an act. Now, this is another argument, that movement is an act.